Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Here we are going to learn about the Angular art_for control syntax. This art_for syntax is one of the newest additions to the Angular version 17 that was just released. So we'll look at how we can use it in our Angular template. So this art_for syntax is used to repeat elements in our Angular templates. It's a built-in syntax, a control flow syntax. We don't need any import to use it, so it's built inside the Angular templating engine. Now to use this syntax, we first write the art, then followed by the for keyword, then now followed by brackets and then braces. Now inside this parenthesis is where we now write out our code on how to loop whatever iterable we want to loop over. Now for this test, we want to loop over this fruits array and display all the elements in the DOM here. So first we'll write out the variable where we want to store each fruit. So we name it fruit, then we'll write the off keyword, then followed by the array we want to display. Then after that, we can now render the fruit inside the braces like this. Now see that we have an error here because we are still missing one crucial stuff. Now this is the track keyword. We need to use the track keyword here. Now you see it goes away. Now this track keyword is used by Angular to track each node as a separate identifier. Now each node rendered here takes the identity of the fruit. So we are using this fruit so that each node will bear the name of each element in the current iteration. So the first node rendered will take the identity of apple, and which is apple being rendered in the node. So far the second one, banana, orange, so that Angular tracks each node rendered independently, so that when a node is being moved around, deleted or rearranged, it can track which key in the array was moved or deleted, so that it can independently compute that node and then replace it in the DOM instead of rendering every array on each change being done in the array. So this is a performance boost that Angular introduced so that it can spice up and boost our performance whenever we remove and add items to our array. So that's why we are using this track function. Okay, you see it. So the keyword to control how the for loop compares item in the list to compute updates. Yeah, so the update is either when we edit the array by adding new elements, removing an element, or just entirely deleting the fruits array. So with this code, it will render each element or each fruit inside this array and display them in the DOM. Now let's save it. Now we see in our DOM that everything there is displayed. So this is how, on a basic note, how the for control syntax works. So you see that it kind of resembles what we have in JavaScript. So this is a very good example of doing something like this. Cost fruits, and then looping through it like this. You can now say for, or we can just use for of fruits and then render the fruit. So you see it is similar to using the for statement in JavaScript. So the only difference is just this track, because in this case we are rendering the elements or the array in the DOM. So you see that it has a striking resemblance to the traditional for of statement in JavaScript. So we are quite familiar with this from anybody that has not used the art_for control syntax before. So also this art_for control syntax replaced the ngFor. Yes, the ngFor directive like this. So you know the ngFor directive was the built-in directive we used traditionally to repeat elements in an array. So now let's convert this code to use ngFor. Then first we need to import it in the imports array. Yeah, because ngFor now is a built-in directive and also a standalone component. So we need to import it in the imports array of in the element in the component that we're going to use it. Sorry. So next thing, we are going to remove. First, we are going to use the ng keyword like this. Then write let fruit, then off keyword, and then fruits. Now we remove this and remove this remaining brace. Now it renders. So you see which one is more simpler. You can see that the using the new @for control syntax is more simpler than using ngFor. One, this is much harder to remember because it's kind of like an Angular style of doing something or just rendering, and also the imports and this extra import here also. So it looks strange and complex kind of to remember, but using the new @for control syntax makes it very easy. So we say we don't need any extra imports. Everything is built in for us to use. And also with this track keyword or the track directive now being compulsory in the @for keyword, when we use the ngFor, the trackBy function is not compulsory at all. So it's optional whether you can add it or not. So you see that this @for control syntax brings performance to the table immediately. So it forces us to add this trackBy so as to make our array or the rendering of our array highly performant. Now the @for control syntax also goes hand in hand with the @empty syntax. So this @empty syntax is used to display a DOM when the collection that we are iterating over using the @for control syntax is empty. Now let's say these fruits, like there is nothing here, so you will see that we will see an empty DOM. Yeah, but we don't want to show this empty DOM in some cases. We want to display there is no fruits here, or the basket of fruits is empty. So how do we do it? Simply we come here, write @empty syntax, then inside the braces where we now write whatever we want to display to our users to tell them that the collection is empty. So we now say no fruits here. So you see it is displayed. So you also see how easy it is just to do something like this. If we are using the ngFor directive, first we will just write the ngFor. Then to show that there is no fruits here, we will now have to use an extra ngIf and check for the length like this, something like this. Fruits dot length is equals to 0, so as to display this. So you see it will be an extra work and also an extra import of an ngIf directive just to show that there is no item in the array or in the iterable at all. So you see how Angular has made it easy for us now to display whatever we want when the array that we're iterating over using the @for control syntax is empty. We can iterate over strings using the @for control flow syntax. Now let's see how to do it. Now let's say we have Angular here, and then this will represent each character in the string Angular, ANGULAR. Now track it character, then we display it here. So you see each letter in the word Angular are all iterated over and displayed here. It is worth noting that we can only iterate over iterable objects using the @for control syntax. So look at list of iterables we have in JavaScript. We have arrays, strings, sets, maps, argument objects, node lists, typed arrays, generators, and custom iterables. Now, these can only be repeated over using the at4 control syntax. So you see that the at4 control syntax works the same as the for off loop in JavaScript, because the for off loop also is only capable to iterate over iterables. So you see that the for off is the same thing as this at4 control syntax we have in Angular. Now you see we were able to iterate over this string because it is an iterable. See it here, strings can be iterated over, it's an iterable, and we're also able to iterate over an array. Yeah, we have seen it before, fruits, able to iterate over an array. Then now let's iterate over sets. Now simply we can just convert this to set like this, and it works too. Now also we can also convert them to maps. Maps can be iterated over. Remember that maps are stored in a key value pair. So we can set our key to be apple, or we can just make our key, let's say apple key here, then create another key for banana and just call it banana key. Then for orange, you create a key for it. You can just call it orange key. And last, create for mango. You can now call it mango key. Mango key. Then I think we're having problem here. Okay, is from this banana we have not closed the array, so everything is set. Now nothing is rendered. I think let's see what's the problem. No, let's view, inspect, and then go to console. Okay, we are having error ng0100, expression changed after it has been checked. Okay, so we just need to convert this to a push, to an unpush component, and we see it work. So you see maps are rendered, the key and the apple. So also you can even get it like this, because we can get this. So we can get this inside this character. So since we know it's an array, so this too is an array. So we can now get it like this. Say here key no, sorry, it should be outside. Can now say key, we'll remove this, then we'll say value, value 1. Oh, sorry, not value, just character, but the second element. So you see it works. Now also we have looked at maps. Then let's look at argument objects. We cannot really get argument objects because they are gotten from inside a function. Let me say we have a function like this. So whenever we set a function like this, JavaScript now creates an object called arguments inside it. So this is only created in JavaScript, or is created by JavaScript. We don't have any power over it to create it. So whenever we create a function like this, JavaScript adds arguments for us. Now this contains in an array like indices all the arguments being passed to the function. So this is also an iterable, and we can iterate it over using the at4 control syntax. Yeah, but we cannot really access the at4 control syntax inside it, so we can skip it. Now node lists are just list of elements gotten via any of the DOM APIs. For example, you can say get elements by ID, class name by name, tag name, and tag name ns. So whatever we get from here, from this API, we can iterate it over using this @for control syntax. And the node list also is an iterable. Now, typed arrays, we can iterate over typed arrays. Now, let's look at it. Int. Now we say int. Now let's say each array. Now start 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now since this is no longer an array, so this goes away and we remove this. So it will iterate over every single element in the array. So this is how we create a typed array. And now you see it displays every character inside this. Now let's look at generators. Now, to create a generator, now after the function, put asterisk, then the name of the generator function. So generator function is kind of like a normal function, but the difference is that it yields value on each call. Now here we use a yield keyword. Now let's yield like 3 characters. Now yield. Now whenever a generator is called, it yields or returns the value of a yield. So the value of a yield is one called against the yield keyword. So now this one we have yield 1, yield 1, yield 2, yield 3. So in the first call of this generator, it returns the value of this yield, which is 1, and exits. It doesn't run again, it doesn't continue down. On the second call, it returns 2. On the third call, it returns 3. If on another call, it will return undefined because there is no longer yield keywords here or yield statements here. Now, so we have an error here because we cannot set a generator inside a class. So we set it down here. No, the class component cannot see. So let's set it at the top of this component. Now, we call the generator here. We call it as a function because it's iterable. Now this is a template. JavaScript no longer occurs here, so this won't work. Now all you have to do is, now let's set a function that will return let's set a method that will return the generator function. So just say get generator function. Now come here and say return generator, and we'll call it. Now we can then use this here and then call it like this. Then let's save it. Now you see the @for was able to iterate over the yields and render each of the values in our browser. So you see, if you add here another yield, let me say Namdi. Sorry, this thing should be yield. It sees, it comes here. Then if you also say yield 2, is displayed. So generators are iterables, and we can loop through it using the @for loop. Now let's look at custom iterables. Custom iterables are iterables that we can create. Yeah, these ones, they are iterables that are not defined by JavaScript or built in inside JavaScript. So all these iterables we are created or built in inside the JavaScript, but we can create our own iterables. So let's close this. Now, before we go on to create our own iterables, now let's note that you see that there is no object here. So objects like this, let me say, let me convert this to an object. Let me say like this. Or we can just add all fruits. Now we go here to try to iterate it. Now see that this fruit is an object. An object is a non-iterable. So this at first statement here will fail. This is because the fruit is an array and an array is not an iterable at all. So this will fail. Now you can see it says the type must have a symbol.iterator method. So this symbol.iterator method is used to create an iterator or to know or identify an iterator. So this is what is being called an internal method defined in data objects to know that they are iterators or iterables. Now the object in JavaScript does not have this, but arrays, strings, set, maps, argument objects, node list generators, typed arrays, and custom iterables all have this internal method symbol.iterator. Now let's convert this fruit to become an iterator. Ideally or naturally, it is not an iterator, but we can make it an iterator because JavaScript allows us to create custom iterables. Now we want the custom iterable, make this a custom iterator or iterable so that it can return all the arrays or all the elements in the arrays or fruits. Now to do that, first we'll have to set this internal method inside it, like this. Now an iterator returns a next function. Now it returns an object that contains a next function property. Now and inside the next function, it returns an object that contains value and done. Now this done value here returns a boolean to tell the iterator or the JavaScript that it has returned everything. So when it returns true, it means that it is done with the iteration. If it returns false, it means that it's not yet done, that it can be called again. So that's the value. Now I want to iterate over these all fruits and return all the elements here. You can check out my video on understanding for of statements. I treated this symbol.iterator very well. So you can check it out to understand deeply what happens when we use the for of statement and also how to create custom iterator. So I delved deep into this topic. So you can check out the video. Now, okay, let's continue. We need to look over this array. In fact, let's add more. Let's add banana and then orange. Now we need to return everything here so that it can be displayed in this DOM. Now, so let's set up a count since we're iterating over here. No, we cannot set over the count here. We can just make it here count. Then this is where the logic comes in. You can now say if the count is greater or equals to the all fruits dot length, then we can return next being undefined and done true. So when this count is greater than the fruits length, because we are using this count to track the iteration of this. Now if not, we'll just return the value this dot fruits use the count, then done is false, then if done is false, then we have to increment count here. So you see it works. So we have apple, banana, but we are missing the apple. So it started from this. So what we're going to do is we can simply make it -1 and we can iterate over every array here. So you see we have converted this our fruits object to become an iterable, and we're able to iterate it using the for of. If we remove this iterator like this, we will get the symbol.iterator message that is no longer an iterable. Yeah, but if we set it we can now iterate over the keys in this fruits array. Now, instead of having a fruits array here, what if we have each fruit name as a property and its value being also the name of the key? Something like this. We have apple like this. So we have all the keys of the properties of the fruits as the key, and then also have the same name as the value. So if we want to iterate over this, now still the same thing. Now all we have to do is just to get the keys of this. So this is what we are going to do. Now this becomes, we now have the keys like this. Now use object dot this, object dot keys, sorry, then and pass this inside it. Now to get us all the keys here. Now we'll now say, we'll now add keys here. Come here and now add keys. Now, okay, we remove here these keys here. Now we save. So we see it still works. Now we are having each fruit name as a property and also the value. Now, so we can now iterate over every fruit added as a property and key instead of the previous one we had to have all the fruits in an array. So you can, let's add another fruit here. Let's add berry. Yes, so we have it. Now add another one. Let's add pumpkin. I hope pumpkin is a fruit. So it adds. So this is how we create custom iterable in JavaScript, and we are able to iterate over it and display it using the @for control syntax in JavaScript. So if we remove, now if we remove every property here, it will display that there are no fruits. Now we have nothing displayed. So that means our logic is wrong here. So we need to correct this logic. First, our count needs to start from 0. Now the key is followed. Now we need to access the current value up here, because you know we are making an increment before now accessing the keys. So we'll now say current value. Now make this access here, then come here, write current value. Now we say if count is greater or equals to the key length, so save. So we have fixed it. So that's why we now have no fruits, because it will return undefined done true, and for knows that yes, we are done with the iterator or nothing was there, and that's why it returned no fruits there. So that's how we're able to convert an object which is a non-iterable to an iterable using the symbol.iterator. So you can see the code here. Go out and you can go on and try it out. Go on and try it out, and you will see it works out. So if we uncomment this, we will have all of them displayed to the last. So you see the magic and how it works. Now we can use implicit variables with this @for syntax. Now one of the implicit variables that we're looking at is the index. Now this index is used to get the current index in the iteration. Now we have index. Now this $index is the implicit variable used to get the current row in the iteration. So when it iterates through this fruit, now it goes and gets this row. Now this index will be 0. At the second iteration, banana, this index will be 1, then so on, 2, 3, 4 till the last. Now to understand this well, let's convert this to an array. Let's remove these and just convert it simply to an array. Then we are going to remove all these keys. Let's remove all these keys. All of them should go. Then make it an array. Now we are now set. Now let's remove this for clarity's sake. Now, so whenever we look through this fruit array, now the fruit starts, index and iteration start at 0 index. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, so whenever we iterate over this fruit array, on the first iteration, the index will be 0. So the index here will be 0. So we assign it to this variable which is only alive between these braces. So that's the only way we can use this index. Now, on the second iteration, banana, this index becomes 1. On the third iteration, it becomes 2. Fourth iteration, it becomes 3. On the fifth iteration, it becomes 4. Now, let's test it out. Now, first, let's write here fruit. And then now, let me use code and say index. So now we can now use the index here. Now we save. So we are going to, okay, our server is off. Let's on our server. It's coming up. So let's reload. Now you see it. We have our index: apple 0, banana 1, orange 2, berry 3, and pumpkin 4. So that's how we can get the correct iteration index by using the $index implicit variable. Now we have other implicit variables called first and last. Now the first implicit variable is used to indicate if the correct iteration is the first in the collection. Now, for example, first will be true for the current iteration of apple, but false for banana, orange, and the rest. Now, let's see how it's done. Simply just write first here. Now, the variable takes the name first. Now, we replace it here. Now, we now say here, first, you see first element. Now, so you see for apple, it is true. But for banana and all other items in the array, it is false. So because first is used to indicate the first element or the first iteration in the collection, which is fruits in this case. Now we have another implicit variable which is last. Now last is the opposite of first. This is used to indicate the last element in the collection. Now we have last here. Now we have last. Now I'll come here and say last element. So you see for apple it's false, banana false, false, false till pumpkin, which is true because pumpkin is the last element in the array. Now we can combine both implicit variables together. For example, if you want to write for the first element in the same, we just do something like this. So it works. So you see in the same sentence, we can get both implicit variables, both the last implicit variable and the first. So we can get implicit variables in this line. Also, we can even get the index. Can get it like this also. Just something like we do in JavaScript. Yes, declaring variables and assignments in one line. So we can now come here and write first element. Now come here and write first. And now indicate is it the first element. Also, we can now write index, write index, then save. So you see all of them are printed out. Last element false, first element true, index 0. So also to make it more clearer, we can just use the break element. So you see it's now very fine in the eye. So you see fruit, apple, first true, index 0, up until to the last element, to the pumpkin. You see pumpkin, last element yes true, first element false, index 4. So you see this is how we use all the implicit variables in one line. Yes, and it works. Also, we have implicit variables odd and even to indicate if the current index in the current iteration is an odd or even number. So let's see how it is done. So we will track both even and odd. So to get the even implicit variable, we do this. Now for odd, we do this $odd. Now let's render them so that we will know which one are odd indexes and even indexes. So even here, we say even, and then we'll remove this one. So whenever we iterate, or let's leave index so that we can see it in view for better explanation. Let's leave this index here. Now see, in each iteration, iteration begins from number 0, 1, 2 till the last item in the array. So this even tracks if the current iteration that its index is an even number. Now mind you, even numbers are number 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. They are divisible by 2, and odd numbers are not divisible by 2, which is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and so on. So it checks if the current index is an even or odd number. So if it is odd, it becomes true. If it is even, it becomes true. If it is not even, it's false. So the even and odd index variables are Boolean values. So now we see in this apple, the index is 0. So the odd will be false and the even will be true, which is what we have here. False and even. Then we come to banana. The index is 1. So the odd will be true and even false. Same thing with orange. The index is 3. No, sorry, 2. 0, 1, 2. Which is odd, false, even, true. Berry, the index is 3. Which means it's an odd number and not an even number. Then coming to pumpkin. Pumpkin, sorry. Pumpkin has an index of 4. Then 4 is an odd number or is an even number and then not an odd number. So that's why we have even, true, and false, and odd, false. So this is how we can track the index number, and also track if they are even or odd numbers. So these two implicit variables are very powerful and very important so as to trace when the index is an even or odd number. Now we have another implicit variable called count. This count holds the number of times the array is iterated over. So count, it holds the number of times the collection or the array is iterated over. So in this case, it will be collection, because if we say array, we are hard coding that we are only using array. So we can iterate over arrays, strings, maps, sets, and others. So now here so we have rendered the variable count. So this count takes in the element that is iterated over and then assign it to this count variable, and we are able to display it here. So looking at this, we iterate over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. we iterate over 5 elements. That means the for array will go over 5 iterations. So this count will be 5. Now let's run it. You see 5. So that's the work of this implicit variable, to get the number of items or iterations that the @for control syntax will go over the collection. Now we have learned all about the @for control syntax, seen how it works, and objects and data structures that we can use it on. And also, the next thing is that this @for control syntax is only available in Angular 17. So from anything from Angular 17 downwards, you cannot use the @for control syntax. Then if you are using Angular version that is less than version 17, you can migrate to it by running this CLI command ngGenerate at Angular/control core control flow command. So once you run this command, it will migrate your code and add the control flow, add all the control flows features for you in your current Angular package, so that you can now be able to use these and the implicit variables. Then also, when using this @for, always make sure that you are not using it in intricate data structures. Now also, avoid using it for vast large data sets. We are just using it for this data sets because they are it's kind of very small. But when your data sets are numbering the tens of thousands and more, you should now use pagination and break them into snippets or visualized lists, so that not to affect the performance of your app in general. So that's all for this course. Remember to like this video, share it, and also subscribe to this video for more content like this on Angular. Then if you have any question, you can drop me an email at codevanga40email@gmail.com, and also you can follow me on Twitter at ngarchangel. You can follow me here. So if you have any questions, you can follow me any of these social media handle and drop me messages, or you can drop comments directly on this YouTube video. So see you next time on our next Angular course. Bye.